Wait, oh, it's on.
Well, you're taller.
Maybe it's the.
As if you need a microphone too.
I know.
Between Soph and I, you'll hear us regardless of whether or not you're here.
No mic, no mic's necessary. Do you want to sit closer, Lou? I don't know.
That's as low as it goes.
Sure. I think. Are you? Okay.
Well,
Oh, thank you.
do you want to?
No. We're good. This is great.
Oh my gosh. So bad.
Hello.
Oh.
The podcast is us just saying stuff.
This is just.
We are live.
Oh, they got all.
I literally just hit it. It's fine. Hello. So none of our plus ones are here, but it's cool.
My plus one is here.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. I apologize.
With the most amazing hair.
Yeah. I'm gonna take Soleil because Soleil was like my plus 3. And 3 is my favorite number, so I'm gonna take Soleil.
Cool beans.
You know, can I be honest with you? I didn't invite anyone but Eric because I was like, well, I don't want to hog like if they have special people that they want to bring.
Eric, it's Friday in LA, and we just drove across town.
We did.
So I get why
When you told me where you were staying, I was like, oh, I thought you'd be staying closer.
I was going to, but
I live right there.
I'm broke, so that's why I'm staying where I'm staying.
Got it.
It's all on the live, by the way.
Copy.
Well, now that they all know I'm broke, they can donate my number.
Cash App is.
Staying
Got your
live.
cash app.
PayPal.com/military. And actually, yes, if anybody wants to donate to us today, we'll be splitting the proceeds between East West Players, the amazing location that we are at right now, and the Blasian March.
Amazing.
So donate money. All right. Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Militantly Mixed podcast, the live stream, the podcast about race and identity from a mixed race perspective. I am the host of Militantly Mixed, Carmen Curie, a.k.a. the Blasian Blurred. I love that we wearing a mask because you can still, even with the like, it's fine. It's great.
It's totally fine.
The busiest mixed race, gender, bisexual, polyamorous, issues comic book nerd, cat mom, and 2-time Asian American Podcast Association in this podcasting game. And today we are in Los Angeles at the East West Players Theater, right outside of Little Tokyo, and we are together to participate in this weekend's actions at the Blasian March. And so my panelists that are joining me today are 2 folks you know, 1 folks you don't. Rohan Zhou-Lee, the originator of the Blasian March in New York, and has brought the action over here to Los Angeles.
You love a bi-coastal girl.
Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll go down the line.
Okay then. My name is Rohan Zhou-Lee. I am, as Charmaine said, the founder of the Blasian March. For folks who don't know, the Blasian March is a Black Asian solidarity initiative by means of 1, education on parallel experiences with racism, and 2, mutual celebration of all of our communities. Other than that, I'm a writer, I'm a dancer. My article dropped this morning on Newsweek, so that was a moment. I was like, oh, hi. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
So excited. And then next to Rohan, we have another person you're familiar with, Asian Soph.
I always hate following Rohan because they're so impressive. My name is Asian Soph, and that is my government name.
Yes.
Pronouns she, her, hers. I run the pages Mixed Present, Mixed Made, and of course my personal page, Asian_Soph. And I am an activist. I don't know, how else would you describe me? Just that.
Superhero.
Multiracial Wonder Woman.
What's that? Multiracial Wonder Woman. That's
Yes,
correct.
that. I say so humbly. And yes, And we are part of what we call the Mixed Asian Quartet. We are missing Mona
We're
Lisa.
missing one of our cousins,
Yes.
Mona Lisa. Shout out if you're here. We'll be with you in New York in the future.
Just to be clear, I'm not part of the Mixed Asian Quartet.
You are a
But-
part of this mixed
I'm part
Asian
of
quartet.
perhaps a quintet.
Wait, we can do a quintet.
You can do a quintet.
We
We-
can do a quintet. We got room.
We
for
could do a
quintet.
whole army if
We
we
really
wanted
could.
to.
And
Yeah.
actually a whole ass orchestra.
That's a better word than army. You're right.
And then our latest addition to the Mixed Asian Quintet
Quintet.
Quintet.
is Lee
it.
Victor. Kim, why don't you introduce yourself to me?
Hi, my name is Lee
Yes.
Kim. My pronouns are they, them, them. I'm so honored to be on this panel with y'all. We've talked individually about like what it means to be mixed race Asian and like the many very strange things that come with that and navigating that and how that gives us power. And so I'm very happy to be here with y'all. A little bit about me. I am an arts and cultural worker. A lot of what I do, a lot of the activism that I do is around bringing more attention to marginalized communities and art workers specifically within the art world, but also, also I do a lot of organizing with the Korean diaspora nonprofit Gyokpo, and also I'm a core member of, my mic.
It might be dipping.
Yeah, it keeps on dipping every now and then. That's okay, I'll just power through it. I'm also a core member of the arts activist organization or grassroots org, Stop Discrimination. Not the best name, but you know, we're rolling.
I like
that.
What?
But to be fair, I put Maine in everything. So like my Xbox gamer tag is Magnificent. I'm a
Fabulous.
mermaid.
Fabulous.
See
Let
what
me
you're
wrap up myself then really quick. Just a sec. I'm also a writer. I published with Routledge, and also Taylor and Francis Women's Journal, and Deal Press.
Woo!
Now I'm just gonna start projecting because I think my mic's cut out. Okay. Oh, the
Mic.
Yeah, okay. I think it's kind of different too.
I do also want to add Lee is an excellent organizer, like
Yes.
super
Oh
organized.
my gosh.
Right.
Always keeping us on task in the meetings.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
so good.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I've been building out the Los Angeles contingent of Blasian March, and it's been such a fantastic honor to really try to make this into like bi-cultural movement.
Yeah.
And even imagining like the futures that could embody this as like a movement, this idea, this movement that Rohan has started.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh,
So,
Hey.
Is that the phrase we're going to
I mean, you took a moment and you catalyzed.
Yeah.
And it's a catalyst that's like true to you.
Very specific.
true.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't be here today if not for what you created. That's why we know each other. That's why we came here.
And I met you through May.
Yeah.
All of those pieces came together.
So we are here to talk pretty much about the idea of Black, Asian, and Blasian solidarity in activism from different perspectives. We have two organizers on the panel, and then we have an activator, and I describe myself as an elevator. So why don't we start first with Rohan? Why don't you talk a little bit about what made you start, what moved you to start the Blasian March, and then how it persisted after the one event that you thought you were going to do?
The one event. Wow. So it all started in 2020 after the murder of George Floyd, and I guess in New York there was just that like grand explosion of just like movement work. There was daily protests everywhere, and you know, somehow I found myself organizing in a lot of like AAPI circles, trying to figure out how to be, you know, make this more of an Asians for Black Lives kind of moment. But a certain leadership and I just did not agree on many things.
I love the shade.
I'm just saying, but that's okay. And that's definitely one piece of the puzzle. For me, I think that was more of the acute reasoning behind why I started the Blasian March. Because for me, I was like, I'm gonna do solidarity my way, the way that I think makes the most sense. Um, that's one part. I think looking back more and more, I think I have to give a shout out to all the queer Asian and Filipinx femmes in Chicago that I used to organize with because I was just so in admiration of their constant like transnational solidarity or solidarity to other communities. Like if there was like a BLM action, the Filipino contingent, like we were there without question. Or if there was like an action for Puerto Rico, like Filipinos, we showed up without question. It wasn't like a well, we can't be there because I don't benefit from it. Like I cannot be at this action because I don't see how I can imagine myself in the story. So I give them the love and shout outs to the flowers. Um, I also have to give a shout out to a lot of the Black trans leadership in New York. So during the 2020, a lot of these actions were very much like centering Black straight men, essentially, or Black straight people. To the point at which a lot of Black trans folks were like, we're just gonna do our own actions. So that way, we're bringing our own explicit hypervisibility to spaces. So those are kind of like, I guess, the things I'm pulling from that were like, oh, you know, if there's, a march for Black women, there's a march for, Black trans folks, there's a march for the disabled Black people, well then, let's make a march for Black Asians.
Yes.
We love
Yeah.
that. Everyone was so ready for it though, weren't they?
I think a lot of the folks in the Asian community were really ready for it because it was trying to figure out where do we make our part visible or known in that time period around the death of George Floyd? Because I can't tell you how many rallies I would go to and I would see so many Asian organizers like in the background doing all like this logistical support. Because, I think lots of folks recognized, oh, it's time to let, this is a moment for the Black community to get uplifted. And I guess for the Blasian March, it was finally a space where it's like you can be in the background, but also at the front at the same time.
Yes, absolutely.
Like we are allowed to share space.
Well, so many of us that are Blasian also sit in between the categories of the people that we're watching being murdered on both sides of our ethnicities and our cultures, and so we're seeing ourselves as like, which movement do I participate in
Right.
versus maybe there's something for us, and I think that's what you gave us. You gave us something that we could be included in, but also some of our stories could be centered in because that was existing very heavily at the time. I mean, we were going from one day a Black person being murdered to one day a Asian elder being harassed or hurt because of COVID.
And how this was hitting the mainstream too, though, and how you were using those platforms to bring awareness to trans rights as well. With the first Blasian March Trans Power Rally in New York, which is now being continued in LA. It's really a beautiful movement that so many people can get behind because it's A, intersectional, B, mixed, very fluid. There's a certain logic that reflects the 21st century. You know what I mean?
Is this the beginnings of our mixed race theory books?
I love it. So good.
So moving from, I mean, that's even how I discovered you as I was from Mona Lisa, our other quartet member. She mentioned that there was a Blasian group and told me to join it. I joined it. I saw your post that you were about to do it. I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to be in New York anytime soon, but I would like to talk to this person. So I reached out and got you on my show, and we've been family ever since, pretty much immediately.
So beautiful.
And then from there, like the amount of times we talked, I was like, there's someone else I want you to meet, and that's how
I feel like you introduced me to everybody. I feel like you're like, no.
I'm
this
about
person
building
has to be.
communities
I
as
love
much.
it.
Like I've always described myself as not a boots on the ground activist. I want to participate in those spaces, but I struggle for my own reasons, my own health reasons, my own physical limitations and things like that. But I want to elevate and I want to support as much as possible. And then watching you over the last few years, I'm just like, damn, she's really out there. Even like no matter what, you were out there. Whether it's COVID, whether it was something else, you were still out there. And I know that there's more people you should be connected to because of what you do. When I got a chance to meet Rohan, it was the same type of thing. It was like, this person has something I don't have but need in my life. So I just need to absorb them. And then in doing that, these are terrible choices of words. Spread it around everybody else. Sometimes my phrasing is just.
But what you're describing is also community, no?
Yes, it's all community. That's the whole point of Militantly Mixed. That's the whole point of what we're doing here. And then when I found out that there was going to be, you just happened to casually mention in May there's going to be an action. We didn't have a plan yet. It was just going to happen. And I was like, all right, tell me the weekend so I can book it down. And from there, now I have Lee in my life, and I've also gotten to meet Soleil as well. So like, you guys are giving me people that I can.
Spread the network, right?
Right.
Oh, by the way, for folks, please read Soleil's article on Mochi Mag and Justice by Design, Solidarity by Choice. It's a great just analysis of the LA uprising, knowing how a lot of it is rooted in U.S. imperialism, U.S. militarism. I love you.
Life affirming nectar on Instagram.
Yes.
And I will, after all this is over, I will link all of these things that we bring up in the notes underneath the YouTube and also on the podcast when we play it, so you can get a chance to connect all the things that we're dropping today. So I wanted to get into a little bit about the different aspects of activism, because we do all approach it from different positions. And one of the things that happens that I hear the most on my show when we talk about activism is like, what can I do because I can't X, Y, Z, whatever it is, whatever limitation that person has or believes they have. They don't think that they can be an activist because they can't, maybe, like I said, I'm not a boots on the ground person. So how do I engage? I use my platforms to elevate those actions that are happening, right? So we come from all different things. And I used to describe you as an activist all the time, and then you would correct me and say, I'm an activator. Why don't you talk a little bit about the difference between activation versus straight up activism?
Yeah, well, I think, it's like rooted in the same thing, acting, but also putting out like education and elevating and amplifying stories, which I do mostly through my community page, Mixed Present. But it's basically getting people to like see why something is important to be speaking up about and acting on and doing something about. And whether it's through conversations I had, like through series on Instagram or anything like that, or through educational posts, or through being on podcasts and talking about just the history of different things. Like right now we're really talking about the history of Black and Asian solidarity, but I mean, just knowing the history and the facts and the education. And I think that stems from constantly being in dialogue with folks who want to shut down what you're saying. But if I'm like, nah, these are actual factual statistics. And because I've like gone out of my way to really like study it and know it, it's just really empowering me to be like really confident and not like shut down in the face of like so many people telling you can't speak on this, or you aren't a part of this community, so why does it matter, or whatever it is, like people who just feel the need to have that kind of dialogue with you. And so now I'm just trying to give that kind of energy to other folks, because I think a lot of people struggle with feeling like either important enough or a part of the community enough, or like they have the right to even say anything and speak for people, or feel like that's not really what they're doing, but like kind of have that sense. So that's kind of what my role is. But I also am in these damn streets.
Yeah, you are.
Yes, I am.
You do a lot. And then in the short amount of time that I've known Lee as well, so whether or not this is accurate, you tell me. I've described you as the LA chapter's Blasian March or main organizer.
Titles are weird, right? And I concur with that, though.
I mean, because
right?
I feel like you've done so much work, and where I feel like I haven't been able to step up at a distance or whatever, I'm just like, you've done so much to make it possible for us to even be sitting here right now.
Well, shared
So I do
passion,
think
right?
that's
fair. Shared passion makes it a lot easier to do things when you find community and you share passion with each other and you can talk with each other to be like, hey, this is going wrong. I don't feel like I don't know what's going on with this. Like the other day, so you're really there for me in terms of like dealing with some strange things. I'll mention maybe in the comments sometime later.
After the
You know,
action.
But
It's over.
I know, right? I really appreciate though, Charmaine, you pointing that out. Because it is a lot of work and there's a lot of invisible labor because, you know, as if you see my Instagram, you'll quickly realize I'm not a social media influencer. So like my terms of activism are very much like in the more invisible labor sector, which is like completely fine, you know, like.
And necessary.
It is necessary and it's all about holding respect for that kind of work and giving like, you know, credit where it's due, which is something that I also try to do as well. But going back to your question though, like what kind of organizing do we do? How do we like see ourselves as contributing? I see myself as contributing in a way where actually Rohan and I were just talking about this. It's just like, it becomes a skill to see when something becomes like a very easy connect. When it's a very easy, like, oh, I have this in common with this person. This is something that can connect us, not divide us. And
Right.
it becomes so much easier when you become focused on identifying what divides people, and that is the issue, right? Because it's fluid. The systems, the neoliberal systems around us constantly change because we're changing. We just have to change faster, which is something that mixed people do every second.
Gonna say that.
Yeah.
That's a skill that we have.
Thank you for letting me finish. But you know, and honestly though, I would have not like come to this frame of thought today because opinions change every day, no? But how I see it today is because the influence and community from everybody at this table, from everybody in this audience, Soleil, Kevin, Courtney, JP. Hi. Also, by the way, JP's shirt is beautiful. It's Unfuck the World.
Yeah, show it.
Talking about trying to identify divisive things. No?
Yes.
But yeah, passing the mic though. Rohan.
What do you mean? We all looked around.
I'm sorry.
No, I love that you said that when it's like what divides and what we can like, I guess, organize around to undo that division. And, you know, that's something that I have definitely seen on the ground and why it does not work. And like anything that to me is like divisive, it feels almost like that strange binary of if, like for me, my personal experience, like if I showed up to a rally around South Asian hate, all of a sudden I'd be seen as a traitor to Black Lives Matter. It's like
The double standards, the
Yeah.
triple standards,
Right.
multiplicity of standards.
And the lack of understanding of what people like us, we're all mixed Asians on this panel. 2 of us are Blasians, 2 of us are white and Asian mixes. We have our toes on both sides. We're literally flowing between them and at all times both. So
right.
having that opportunity.
Right. It's like a lack of understanding, as you said, but also I feel like it's a lack of just like imagination. Like-
That's a good point.
Like this colonial state with like the white miseducation, the colonial education has taught us so many ways of knowing that we can't imagine ourselves beyond those spaces. Like we are so taught that Black and Asian communities like cannot coexist. And that narrative always drives the LA uprising. So once again, read Soleil's article.
Yes.
Because, you know, her wonderful article also talks on moments of solidarity during the LA riots. And, you know, it's like so many organizers are so rooted in what they believe to be reality. When it's like, it's great to organize around reality, but what about organizing around possibility?
Yes.
What if it's
Yes.
I am making this rally because for me, I believe it is possible for us to coexist.
Vision.
It's a vision.
And at the end of the day, we're literally fighting the same enemy. White
Exactly.
supremacy,
Literally.
patriarchy,
Exactly.
like all these things are rooted in one very specific enemy, white supremacy.
And when you take the path of compassion and community, it becomes faster and faster to see where white supremacy and divisive tactics of social control show up.
100%. And then when you mix that with actual like statistics and facts and history of like discriminatory legislation and just unjust situations that have happened with the justice system and stuff like that, then you really wait. The cops are interrupting us. I just anyway.
Yeah. And I feel it's even more exacerbated when we replicate those structures and hierarchies in our communities.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
Like I remember going to one solidarity rally between like folks of color, and they were basically like, "Oh, we're bringing on like Asian organizers. What are your protest chants?" So someone approached me and was like, "Can we use Blasian March chants?" I was like, "Absolutely, why not?" And then the feedback that we got was, "Oh, these protest chants, such as saying like Asian power, that's appropriation of Black culture." And I was like,
I mean, historically, the word power is used in almost everybody's.
hello.
Organizing.
This is why, again, like this colonial education, we don't know our own history. Like we
Yeah,
always think that this term is specific. I'm like, but the phrase is all power to the people.
It's also a
Yeah.
neoliberal.
All power to all people.
Oh, that part.
Well,
That
it's
part.
rooted in the white supremacist like structure of, in order for this group to benefit, everyone else must somehow lose something. A zero-sum game situation. And that's why people have such a hard time with, is the word digesting, I don't know, like what's going on with the LGBTQIA community, and like learning pronouns are like the end of the world for some people, and just like, it doesn't make any sense. Like it absolutely, like we can all exist and understand each other, and truthfully throughout history, the way that we have gotten anything is through groups coming together in solidarity. That's what it is.
That reminds me earlier when you were talking about having the imagination, Rohan. It brings to mind the phrase having the imagination to see what's actually there without perceiving.
That's a really good point. How artistic.
Right? I love words. but-
I love words.
I also hate grammar though. Grammar is
So-
low key a construct of white supremacy.
No, it is. Grammar is colonization. Yes.
So is spelling for some people too. Like if you can figure out what I've said through how I spelled it.
Yeah.
that works.
What happened to creative language? What happened to artistry on the day to day? Why can't I have a relationship with it?
Right.
Anyway, I'm just putting out like general questions in the universe.
Put
you
it
know
in
what I
the
mean?
ether
Like,
and it'll.
yeah.
Oh, did you?
No.
Okay, because you arched like you had something.
Rohan's a dancer.
Yeah.
They just arch. They just arch.
Posture, yeah.
I did want to get into, well, I guess for those of you who aren't watching the live stream but are hearing this later, to give a visual description of what we have, because I started with
Yes.
that. There, like I said, there are two people who are representing the Blasians, and there's two people on the panel that are white and Asian mixed. I am a very light-skinned Black Asian. I don't look like Naomi Osaka, as many people will come up to me on the street and tell me as a Black Japanese. So I'm light skinned. I'll tell you the story. I have like a yellow, brown, light skin. I have blue, purple. Well, right now my hair is blue, purple, and magenta kind of mix, but it's very straight, very, very Japanese hair. I'm wearing a Be Your Mix As Self t-shirt and a black Militantly Mixed hoodie. That's my visual representation. More down the thing.
Oh, we forgot. Crap. Okay.
I know, I forgot.
right.
I know, we
We're on this
always
way.
do this, by the way. But
I
it's
want to
fine,
make
as
sure
long
that
as
we
we
got
do
it in
now.
there. So we're gonna get it in.
So I am a brown skinned with a slightly golden tint.
Ah!
Black Asian with, as I discovered this year, curly black hair. I have never grown out my hair, so I know.
Were you not allowed to, or something?
Well, like there was some like trauma around like my hair and like ballet world, and like someone said that my
Also
hair wasn't right
colonized.
for ballet, so.
Shame on them.
Oh, honey is nowhere in life. Look where-
Ah!
I'm wearing
I love
a I guess, burgundy button down, courtesy of my ex.
I love this.
Courtesy of the ex, thank you. And I have a clear quartz crystal. Beautiful.
I am a fair-skinned mixed Asian. I have like curly brown hair, and I'm wearing a black Militantly Mixed t-shirt that says "Mixed and Hella Asian." You can purchase it.
You can purchase it on militantlymixed.com.
Shout out. And I'm wearing a silver necklace. That's my Japanese name. It says Michiko.
Let me just start. My Korean name is Yomi.
Yeah!
And I like that because it is a gender neutral name. Visual description. I've always kind of seen myself as being a little bit more olive skinned. My hairstyle is a cut that usually a lot of Korean men wear. The shirt that I'm wearing a pink mask. The shirt that I'm wearing, it's like a modernized play on a traditional Korean male shirt. And I'd like to give a shout out to my boots. They're very cute.
They are
They are pretty
The
cute,
whole
yeah.
fit is
The
great.
whole
Yeah.
ensemble.
Yeah.
Let me just quickly describe my boots though.
Please do.
They are a mix, just like everybody at this table. It is a
Yes.
square toe, honey. A square toe
Square
with
toe.
a cowboy heel.
And they're black.
Yes, thank you. And I think vegan leather.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we are also sitting in front of the steps of, again, I mentioned earlier, the East West Players Theater, which is
Woo!
here in downtown Los Angeles, right near, or right in Little Tokyo. It is a beautiful stone building with columns. Oh, you described the columns the other day. What are they called?
Oh, they are Doric columns.
Say that again?
Doric columns.
Doric
Yeah, they're more feminine and formed and simplified, but considered elegant when you look at the top of the column where there are scrolls.
We're gonna ask you.
I think having Lee here has really rounded us out. I'm not
It's like it's something we're missing.
Well, thank you so much.
I'm
That's
so
such a great
grateful.
compliment. All of y'all are amazing.
Also, Lee, I'm really fucking proud of you.
Oh my
so
God.
proud. So proud.
Like, y'all don't know, Lee literally orchestrated and just all of this from like December.
Oh no,
When
it
did you
started
start?
like last October. Is when I was
Right,
starting
that's
on getting
right.
the
Wow.
funding together.
Right. Okay. So context for folks. So last year, for the 1 year anniversary of the Blasian March, we decided to do a Black Asian Trans Power Rally to center Black Asian and Blasian trans folks. And we were like, well, I was like, you know, it'd be really cool if it's gonna happen like in other cities, because everyone's like, oh my God, this like thing called the Blasian March, it's so cool. And I was like, thanks. I thought it was like this tiny little one-time rally, and now it's.
Now we got
It's
chapters.
becoming something beautiful that a lot of people are really excited about because everybody
So
sees
good.
the vision clearly and the future
Aw.
clearly with it.
I have some Blasian and/or Black Asian couples that are in Houston. When they heard what I was doing in LA, they were like, "Wait, is that everywhere?" And I'm like, "It can be."
And
So we may have a Houston chapter as long as I have someone like Lee with me.
I mean, I'll just like come out to live in Houston for a little
There you
bit,
go.
get it started. I love that. By the way, though, I wanted to share. I forgot to share what my niece is.
Oh,
I
yeah.
wanted to
Oh,
be
yeah,
one.
go ahead.
Did you share yours? Do you want to go
none
first?
of us.
Oh, I don't think any of us have. You
Oh,
wanna-
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
We'll work
Well,
it
I'm
backwards.
very proud. I'm very proud to be Korean,
Yeah.
half Korean.
Woo!
Less proud of being half white.
I struggle with it.
I mean, you know, it's like one side is nicer.
Well, that's funny that you talk about that because I am half Japanese, which kind of the imperialists of the East Asians. We're very sorry, Korea. Very sorry.
I mean,
I don't.
there's two
You know.
mixed Japanese on this panel. We both
Say
struggle.
sorry.
I'm just sorry.
At least somebody does, you know.
And I'm also German,
give me
Scottish, and
reparations.
Welsh. What?
I was just making a reparations joke.
Oh,
We love it.
Welsh, though, that's amazing.
yes. But I am proud to be all those things. But also very I think I just root myself in facts and history of all things, and I think it's important to acknowledge that stuff. I'm also a middle child who is very, very much into justice and how come they get a rule and I don't get this rule, and how come you made this rule because of me, but they were allowed to do this. I was very much like that. I got in trouble a lot in school for doing that.
Which is why she is in justice work today.
And I'm a Libra, so there's
I
that.
love the Libra energy though.
You know?
Is that the one with the scales?
Yes.
But it's also all about love. Too.
Yes. Also,
Sorry.
yes, very much about love, like you said. Venus is our ruling planet. I'm sure my partner would agree.
Oh my God.
Well, first off, side note, the fact that we always bring up the zodiacs at some point in time in our conversation.
we are in
Always
California.
around me.
It's just like, what is this? Okay, my mix. It is very interesting.
All the
So,
things.
it's all the things. Thanks to the Caribbean and a lot of like immigration to the States, I am Black of unknown African origins, but that goes by way of Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica.
Jamaica.
Yes.
And then I am Chinese, Filipino, and Indian, with Chinese on both sides of the family. Both sides also have Irish. My mother has Scottish, and my father has Cuban.
Wow. All the
beautiful.
things.
Colonization.
I know, right?
Also, your immediate family is all mixed.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
am-
mixed ass family.
I am the third generation of Blasian in my family.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right.
We
so
call
this is
that
your
remix.
grandfather.
Yes. Yes.
And I am also a multi-generational mix. I am Black and white British on my dad's side, and Japanese, Scottish, and Welsh and English on my mom's side. So the whole island, the Great Britain, that's mine.
The
That's
whole
mine.
other island.
The whole other island, that island, and then Japan. So I am heavily colonizer, heavily oppressor, somehow ethnically. And my African origin is Gabon, the Koda, the Atike, and the Soph people of Gabon. And I maneuver, though, as a Black Japanese mix. I did not grow up around white people, so I only know one white relative, which is my British grandmother.
Yeah, it's real as fuck though. Like the different, it's super real.
Fine.
It's real as fuck though. It's like when you are born into a family that practices certain cultures, whether consciously or subconsciously, that culture is carried with you.
Yeah.
You know, and it takes deconstructing and nurturing.
There's certain things that I've discovered, and like going back to England and things like that, or being around my white British family or
Yeah.
relatives that I realize I do, and I'm like, oh, that's a nature. Didn't know that was in there, because I identify myself so strongly with Black and Japanese being the two cultures that I grew up around, the two groups of people that I grew up around. To find out that you got a little bit of that in, that it like surfaced some kind of way is a little bit strong, which is why I completely understand Soph's inclination to apologize, because over many years of interacting in Asian American spaces as a mixed Japanese, I always thought the reason why I wasn't accepted in my personal experience, I hadn't been very accepted in those spaces, was because I was mixed. I didn't think and know really at the time, I didn't have enough history to understand what Japan did across all these places. And so now, once I started to get that information, I maneuvered Asian American spaces differently, and now I find myself in more Asian American spaces because I now understand my history and I understand how to maneuver. And in the same way that we talk about the importance of solidarity movements is to show us when to speak and when to support. So not when to shut up. I think this is very important. It's something that is really important to me in activism. It's not when to be silent. It's when to step back and support so that the other voices can be lifted. And that I think is what is missing when we talk about why solidarity movements don't always work, is because people think they're silencing themselves for others, and I don't think that's a thing. I think it's part of the invisible work that you talk about.
It's also tied to what Soph was talking about in terms of like neoliberal constructions of zero-sum game, that there are limited supplies, that there's
Right.
limited space, when in reality there's space for everybody.
I mean,
And mixed race is a very context-oriented thing, though, like what you're describing too, though.
yeah.
And I think that's what makes mixed race logic and like the way that we think so incredible. because like we're not relying on like perceptions of what we imagine reality to be. Instead, we're looking at the situation and finding the facts, as like Soph does, right? But also like imagining like the futures of like what is this? What's going on? Trying to understand the reality of like now. Or what was it earlier? Like having the imagination to see things without perception?
Yeah.
You know
Or
that,
without perceiving things.
yeah. You're reminding me a lot of Toni Morrison's quote about singular narrative.
Yes.
You know, like yeah, and I feel like on the ground to me that looks like, you know, there's only one way to tell a certain story. Like even like Miriam Kaba speaks on there like the perfect victim narrative. Like there's only one way that a certain story can be understood or acknowledged as being of value. Like even like in the Black Lives Matter movement, like even though it was founded by 3 women, 2 of them are queer, the singular narrative that has been kind of built out of it is policing towards Black, straight, able-bodied men,
Right.
which excludes so many other people. But I think what I love, what I resonate with, Lee, is that because we're mixed, there's no singular narrative for us.
Exactly. We recognize that it's context oriented. We
Right.
read the context and we navigate based on the facts that we find in the context.
Right.
And facts. How do you find facts, right? Like, so, you want to take that?
Oh my goodness. You find facts in so many ways. Like, yeah, you can use these internets, but there's so many books, and then like now we have like podcasts and all these different things that you can yeah, like lots of resources. Thank you for the word. Could not remember it. No, you're good. No, I was like, what's the word? But also it's like being in community with other people who are not like you, which is so common for mixed folks, and then also pulling from different things. So my biggest source of inspiration actually that really got me off the ground, my favorite rapper is this rapper Immortal Technique, New York-based rapper who's like underground but like so popular, like underground but like not, you know. And I was listening to him rap, and he was just he talked about like history and colonization and all these like crazy things. And I started, you would love him.
I would.
But he's also mixed too. Oh my God!
All right,
And then
anyway, someone sent me an email.
But
Is that right? Like,
yeah.
wait, why not just like give a shout out right now?
He's like a well-known artist. He's dope. Yeah.
I'll tag him.
If you get him on your show, I will literally die. But anyway, I was like hearing all these things that he was talking about, and I was like, I gotta learn what all this is because this sounds crazy to me. And
They look at
again, the cops, do they
know.
just know? They know something's a ruin.
It's like right there. It's like they're
And the police station.
Well, we're just around the corner from the police station, City Hall too. So
We're just gonna brief pause.
just breathe through it. Breathe through it. So this sound is so triggering for me as a Long Beach kid. Like,
Yeah.
and even me saying they're looking for somebody, like that is the automatic response to Ghetto Birds.
Yeah, I was gonna say the first time I used the term ghetto birds, like I remember I had a boss that was like white, and she goes, "Excuse my ignorance, but what's a ghetto bird?" And I just thought that was kind of funny.
It sucks.
And I was like, "Do you know the copters?" And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "The police helicopters." Anyway, so going back to some researching, but yeah, no, I like started hearing about all this stuff in his lyrics, and I was already like a huge hip hop head. Side note, I'm singing the Wu-Tang Clan on my birthday, and I'm so excited. And yeah, and so from there, I just started really researching, and then like when you start talking to people about racism and systemic oppression, and you're able to throw in these, this discriminatory legislation passed this year, blah, 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 then people very, very quickly shrink down and leave you alone. And then they're like, okay, so I'm wrong. And I'm like, yeah, you are. And that is my middle child looking for you to say you're wrong. And
Nobody.
I think that's immature.
Nobody can gaslight, so that's your power.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, because like I hear you describing this, and I'm like, damn, I wish I had this kind of like immediate fortitude to drop facts
You know what I mean? And stand behind it without falter.
I've
That's how
seen-
you get people to fuck off.
I've seen Soph do this even while crying before. So
Wow.
even while being upset and about an event that had like a triggering event, I don't remember what it was, but I've seen you even shut it down like in that moment too, to be able to just like, okay, so through these tears. In 1940, no.
It's beautiful though.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Side note, there was like during right around like the Atlanta spa shooting, I did like
That's
4
what it was.
panels and cried on all of them.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, like relax. Like, but I was like, nah, like this is fine.
It was
This is
too
fine.
much, yeah, and
It was-
especially at that time, we were sandwiched between like multiple angles.
It was event, yeah.
And even this past weekend, I struggled to just get an episode out because it was, 10 Black people murdered in Buffalo, and then a shooting in a church where an Asian doctor did sacrifice himself for, to try to protect other people that were in the room. And it's just like you're sitting there going, I can't keep doing this as the phone. Black one day, Asian one day. I can't keep going back
And
and
it's
forth.
the media doing this too, though. And if you think about like Soleil's piece, for instance, they're in Soleil's piece, a woman who's interviewed Rose M. Kim was on the LA Times team that was covering the LA riots, and they received a Pulitzer Prize. And in the article, Rose reflects on the weird shame and pressure and how it got distorted and how it felt out of hand. And those are the larger systems that are really dropping these stories, because the reality is Black death, Asian death, violence against marginalized identities, especially trans identities, it's always been there. It's
Yeah.
always been there. It's not anything new. It's just new in media, new in the mainstream,
Yeah.
which I think makes the Black Asian Trans Power Rally, Black Asian Trans Solidarity Power Rally really powerful, because it's utilizing, again, the spotlight, the mainstream spotlight that Black Lives Matter and Stop Asian Hate. And now just repeating though, material, Rohan, that you prepared. So I'm just being honest about right now, I'm just kind of performing the core movement. So it's just that redistribution though of attention, that redistribution of justice is really powerful.
Yeah, and I think, oh my God,
Again.
it's every time I talk.
So
Yeah.
if the cops,
They're right there.
If the helicopters are ghetto bird, are those ghetto dogs? What? Is there
For some reason, we only have a name for the copters. That's because that's how they would find
Yeah,
us,
exactly.
especially in the 80s. It is a fixture of. I don't know if it's everywhere, but it's very much in LA, Long Beach, Compton, where I grew up. This was. You would be walking down the street, the lights would be shining down because they were looking for someone, and that's why we collectively say that. And then you just make sure you're in the house.
Honestly, the last place I lived before I lived downtown, there was always one out. And I remember once my little sister was out walking, she was like, yo, the spotlight stopped on me, and I just looked up, and I was so afraid.
And they're like, "Oh, Asian, it's fine."
Yeah, and then she was like, and then it just left, and I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
what the hell?
Oh no, it's
dark
it's
sci-fi. What is this?
I know.
And maybe it is-
Rohan's next piece.
West Coast. I don't know, but it was very much a part of the experience that I had growing up in Long Beach and stuff like that. So.
I also do want to add, I know what you had talked about reimagining, and I mean, everyone kind of talked about reimagining, right?
We're all sharing this.
Yeah, and I think why that's so such a skill set for mixed folks is because we constantly grow up
Every day.
fusion, innovation,
Every day.
combining different cultures all the time. And I think this is something also people who are children of immigrants go through as well too.
Yes.
That's something we probably share. And as a child of an immigrant, I would say, yeah, that's probably true.
It's a whole other dimension socioeconomically
yeah.
as well, too, though. And you feel the
Yes.
individuality of American capitalism.
Oh,
And in
So
a lot of our
true.
cases, as mixed Asians, we're encouraged to adapt to
Yes.
Oh, yes.
the American.
yeah.
One of my one phrase that has really gotten me through 2022 and finding more confidence in being mixed is, and I've said this, I've shared this phrase with all y'all, is assimilated monoracial.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
Was that us? That was somebody else. Was that one of our conversations?
Oh, I've talked about this at every.
Okay, great.
Anybody who's mixed, I bring it up.
I know we talk about assimilation very often.
And is it like
It's an
assimilating to the race that you would be most likely to be perceived as?
Whatever is easier, right?
Yeah.
And every day, because we're all proud of being mixed. Every fucking
Nice.
day, we push against that. We push against assimilation, which is really hard because society wants to socially organize us.
Well, I feel like in a case like someone whose presentation is really ambiguous, like mine,
Yep.
I can't assimilate well.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, I assimilate to a culture that is not mine. I assimilate to a culture I look like, which is Dominican.
I knew you were going to say Dominican.
But it's also where you're living too, though, right? And that's why like context is so much, right? Because like when I'm in Florida, I think I've mentioned this, like some people think I'm like Puerto Rican and some people indigenous think I'm indigenous, which is like weird, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like if I'm in upstate New York, that's like super white and Italian, like everyone's like, oh, that's the Asian person. You know,
That's-
I mean, like,
that's
not
so
even Korean, but like, just
Yeah.
like,
Interesting.
yeah, and this is something that we all have dealt with.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
walking down the street, like when we talk about like not being able to see anything outside of the black and white in any movement or anything that we do, we literally will walk down the street and 5 people will identify us differently and might
Yes.
identify us differently to our face.
Yeah.
So if we have to experience constantly being seen as different races or different ethnicities than we are, I mean, we have to develop our own understand. We have to develop our own identity, our own personality, our own perspective. Because if we took theirs in, we'd be exhausted by how much they would make us shift, right?
Yes.
So we have to choose to stop shifting and be what it is we are, hence be your mixed ass self, whatever
Yes.
that is,
Absolutely.
Own
for
your
each
mixedness.
individual person. Like there's times when I feel hella black, and there's times when I feel hella Japanese. And really only when I'm drinking tea and looking down on peasants that use tea bags do I think of myself. But
I'm dead.
That's true.
That was so good. Peasants that use tea bags.
but other than that, I'm my whole picture at all times, like
Yeah.
what that means to me. And so I think that it makes it a lot easier. Maybe I'm only talking from my own experience. Makes it a lot easier to move within solidarity movements or even to move within any kind of activism because I can put myself from minute to minute in a bunch of different shoes that I come from. But it gives me a way, it gives me more empathy, it gives me more access to be able to absorb what other people's experiences are so that I can put that in with what I do. And it happens to me through the show all the time because there's tons of people that are mixed differently than I am that have been on the show that have taught me something that are now a part of my narrative when I share anything about mixedness now. They've influenced what I'm able to do now. And I think that's why it's important to have people like us, a bunch of different people from a bunch of different mixes. And even though some of us share some things, the way we act, Soph and I are both Japanese. She has a Japanese father, I have a Japanese grandmother. These are the 2 people who influence our Japaneseness. Our Japaneseness is different from each other. So we're not, again, we're not monoliths across the board, but as mixed people,
I like the discernment though. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. I guess my thoughts on assimilation have always been like kind of a struggle for me because I feel like I was raised by 2 parents who were Black and Asian. At the time when I was being raised, we only were aware of our Chinese heritage. So, we went to the Lunar New Year celebrations, got the red envelopes, all the lion dances. There's some baby photo of me somewhere in one of those traditional Chinese jackets. I forget what they're called. But it's always been, I guess the bigger challenge is when, again, you assimilate and walk into a monoracial space. And, because your existence defies this collective singular narrative monolith. I find it really fascinating when, especially in Asian political spheres or dialogue, we're not a monolith, and then they meet me, and then they're like, we're not that.
we're not that, whatever you
I'm
are.
like, and that is a monolith. It is a monoracial monolith.
Definitely got that.
I would say assimilation for me is also quite interesting because while I feel like I wonder if you feel this way too. I having a white mother who has blonde hair, blue eye. She's also 6 feet tall. Shout out to the big women. My dad. Side note: we were watching like a soccer game, and it was like the German national team of women, and he just goes, "Oh, Michiko-chan, I love big white women." I love big white women.
On Militantly Mixed forever.
I will say, Mr. Kano. Everyone loves Mr. Kano. Oh yeah. What was I saying? Okay, so but I consciously saw.
Distracted by big
I consciously saw my mother get treated very, very differently from my father. And before I had words for what that was, for what microaggressions were, for what gaslighting was, and all these things, and the fact that my father had all these like stories that I thought were scary about being yelled at by strangers at the bus stop and like going through like really racist shit with my mother's family and like all these things, I was like, well, I couldn't figure out what it was. And then going back to the hip hop thing, like as soon as I was hearing these like lyrics and how people were like talking about how they're treated, I was like, oh my god, like this is like more like down like what I'm feeling inside. I don't have words for it. But because I saw that, I think I was like actively pushing against that. But my parents were also very much like, no, you are all of these things, and like never like questioned anything about that, or never said like one thing is better than another or anything like that. We celebrated literally so many holidays. So like there are pictures of me in my Scottish tartan, which is the Lindsay tartan, which is also my older sister's name, and then in kimono and yukata and German lederhosen. Oh my god, for what?
I need to see
what
that
child
picture.
needs
I
to
need
be
to
wearing
see it.
lederhosen?
It's always cute on kids though.
To kindergarten though? To
Yeah,
kindergarten?
I think it's the most appropriate time for lederhosen and other times maybe not.
Yeah, but yeah, so like we were always like those things, and so I was always really proud of that. But I did go through like an identity journey, and at one point I only identified myself as Japanese because people kept saying like, "What are you?" And I just started.
It would be easier,
That's that
yeah.
assimilated monoracial. Right?
Exactly.
So much easier. But at a certain point, you're tired of feeling like that bag on American Beauty.
100%. And then, but also I felt like people would be like, okay, but like, and I would be like, okay, well, my mother is also this, you know what I mean? And so I think going through that, I just like did that because it was easier, but I never feel like I changed who I was. If anything, because I grew up around more of like black and brown folks, I feel like I went through a point where I was like, am I appropriating people, or am I like, you know what I mean? So I also went through that, but.
You're really angry though, looking at it like sociologically.
You're so affirming. I am here for it. Thank you.
I love being affirming. I just, it's like good vibes, right?
Yeah, true.
I'd like to respond to kind of like my family's dynamic. I'm not going to get too much into it because I don't want to like cry and trauma dump. My mother is Korean and my father is white and in the U.S. military, served 20 years. In terms of how people treated my mother different, I have always gotten really angry at how people treat my mother because she has broken English, and also, she deals with like the intersection of being a woman and Asian, which, as we all know, has its own whole as connotation of servitude, right? Of exotification, of not being fancy enough to be a real woman, but being enough to be an object.
Yeah.
Right? And I can't tell you how many times so many dumb white women in particular would see my mom as like a fucking nanny or something. Or, one time, I'm going to share something very vulnerable that I have not shared in my therapy session. And this will be the end of my trauma dump. But this actually is not trauma dump. Like when people see me and my mom walking with each other down the street, they don't perceive us as like mother and daughter. And that's fucking painful. I was going to go into it, but I'm actually not going to go into that story. But and it's just kind of weird. There's this really amazing sociologist, Black feminist sociologist, Patricia Hill Collins, who does this like analysis of like larger nation biases and how it's like on a national level bias can be present, and that influences communal bias, and that influences bias that's within family, right? and it's very real. I'll just say that. I feel like I don't need to say anything more than that.
Yeah, no, like the this. Yes, thank you for
Thank you
sharing.
for opening that up. So.
You're welcome.
The specific strain of anti-Asian hate I personally get um, within the Black community. Like when you said that, I like of national bias. I was like, yes, I feel this so much. I know, Charmaine and I have been talking a lot about this, but how like for me, I've actually found very little acceptance in the Black community because of my Asianness, and I don't know if it's because the way I appear and by assimilating, invisibilizing my Asianness, by silencing my Asianness, by hiding that part of me. Um, to me, it's like that is conforming to singular narrative, and that is the danger of assimilation. Like when you assimilate to a certain monoracial structure, you are literally losing part of yourself. You are literally erasing part of yourself. And to me, it's like, how can I willfully?
We only have 5 minutes left. They're gonna take it all up with this damn conference.
We'll just be like reclaiming our time. Reclaiming our time.
But yeah, no, there's a deep internalized violence when you assimilate, and there's also, I think, a deep shame that comes with it. Because to me, it's like when I am violently, verbally forced to assimilate to Blackness, it's almost instituting a shame of being Asian.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, my ancestors are a part of me, and they have they survived some deep shit. Like, like my great grandfather, he was a paper son during the Exclusion Act. So, like, to survive that time period when there were so many lynchings of Asians, massacres of Asians, like, I can't be ashamed of that.
Right.
Like, I should be proud that my people have survived this way.
I mean, we wish that they didn't have to.
That part, very true. That part.
We wish that our ancestors did not have to endure what they had to endure, but that they did long enough for you to be here and be, part of the story, the part of the narrative of your bloodline, is very important, I think. We are coming to the end of this. I just want to thank everybody again for participating with me and always sharing space. However many times we do it, we always do it with love and community. And I love you guys so much. Thank you so much.
Yay!
Please
ask.
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap this part and then we can do that just because I'm worried about it cutting off.
Well, thank you, East West
Thank you,
Players.
East West Players. Thank you, Courtney, so much for setting us up over here.
Oh my God,
It's so amazing.
It is.
And just one more time before we wrap all the way up, tomorrow, Saturday, May 21st.
Yes.
Sorry, 4 p.m. We will be at Pershing Square starting the Blasian March Trans-Power. That's the alarm. The Trans-Power Rally. We're going to start it off there starting at 4 p.m. So if you are in the Los Angeles area and you are witnessing this, please come through and support the cousins.
Come join our community.
Yes. Everyone is welcome. Truly a solidarity act.
Absolutely. So one more time before we wrap up, and then we'll get into questions, and this will cut off whenever it comes up. Let's just go backwards down the line, who everybody is, and then we'll wrap up.
I'm Lee Painter Kim. My pronouns are they, them, them. I am a biracial Korean and American non-binary person.
Do you want to do your socials too, or no?
Oh, my social is really difficult to say, and I will say
It is.
Here we go. My social for Instagram is at GQ, 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 and GQ. It's very aggressive.
It's how
but I love
many?
it.
How many of them?
11.
11.
Kind of an unlucky number.
That's
Not
fine.
the
Well,
luckiest
I
number.
mean, maybe for Koreans, but not for.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I don't know that much
11,
about
right?
numerology. I kind of overthink it because it's
In
like
numerology, isn't it an angel number? Something like that. I'm not an expert.
Oh.
Okay,
I
now
think
we're getting
it's
into,
three,
we've done astrology,
Three
which I don't know
ones.
anything about. Now we're
So
doing numerology.
111 will be
Right?
Oh,
It's like,
Soleil
it should
is
have
an
been 12.
expert.
It should have been 12, right?
well,
Instead of
12
11.
or 311. So 111.
She can do
Yes,
111
lucky.
times.
That's hilarious.
Ooh.
I gotta update my info right now.
That's Yeah.
funny. You can change. Yeah, you can change it. Thank you for that. So,
I am Asian Soph. Asian_Soph is one of my pages. Mixed present, spelled like mixed and present, and made mixed_made. And then if you want just some fun stuff, I have a food blog, Soph's Food Diary.
Yeah.
All the
Please
links are
watch
in
the
my
food diary.
bios. Yes, I take lots of big bites and slurp a lot of things, and
nobody
it's great.
loves food like so loves food. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yes, and I'm mixed Japanese, German, Scottish, and Welsh. And yeah, what is that? It?
You can find me on Diary of a Firebird on all platforms. Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. My Facebook is private. Do not look for me. You
Do
will
not
not
look
find me.
don't look for me on Facebook.
You will not find me. Website is also Diary of a Firebird, and of course, Blasian March on all platforms.
Woo!
And I am Charmaine a Fury, aka the Blasian Blurred. So if you want my personal, semi-personal page, you can go to the Blasian Blurred. I finally locked down my personal page because I don't know who all these people are liking my stuff. You don't get my cats unless I know you in person.
I'm dead.
And of course, you can follow me on Militantly Mixed on Twitter, the Tickety Talks, Facebook. There's a group, a private group, and what's the other platform? Instagram. Yeah. And then of course you can buy all the T-shirts for Militantly Mixed and Mixing Hella Asian and Mixing Hella Black and Mixing Hella Queer and Be Your Mix Self on the militantlymixed.com website. And if you would like to support our efforts this weekend, what we've done here at East West Players or what we're doing in the Blasian March this weekend, you can go to paypal.com/militantlymixed, and whatever we earn, we will split between East West Players and the Blasian March. All right, so now let's get into questions. And then we'll wrap up whenever Kevin tells us to get the F out.
Are you sure? You don't get to- Oh, okay.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Shout out to y'all. East West
Thank you
Players is
so
really
much.
that place. That place.
I was honestly just like really excited when Kevin responded back. I was like, oh my god, wait, like this was my first time in LA and being in a lot of like Asian theater, I was hearing about East West. I'm like, am I going to just like be in this space? Like this feels sacred.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we're also bi-coastal,
We are.
East-West, so that's great.
Yes.
Oh,
And
okay.
as mixed Americans that are from Asia, East West.
Look at us.
Okay.
We really stick to
That
it.
is three things.
Okay, questions.
Yeah. So I have like.
Wait, do you want the mic?
Oh.
Oh, I'll give you my mic.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, double mics. This is incredible. I don't want to.
It's like just look at the camera while you do
Hi,
it.
my name is JP, Josh Pacheco, Josh Pacheco Photography on Instagram. I have a couple questions, and they're a little bit heavy. They're about what happened last weekend, but I also have some other questions to and that are pretty light impact. So,
Okay, good. We like that.
but I know you all of you have talked about it earlier, and I was wondering, it was only recently that the attack on Buffalo was categorized as domestic terrorism, and I was wondering what your thoughts are on that, and especially in relation to the attack in Laguna Beach.
I mean,
It was
Laguna Woods.
Laguna Woods.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
found myself making this thing.
I mean, the fact that they even questioned it being a hate-driven crime at all infuriated me, given that they had access to the gun, which does have the N slur on it. It also has, here's your reparations on it. Like, there's no question. Once they got the video where they see him literally apologize to a white man for pointing a gun at him, and I think he said, "I apologize for ruining your peace." Again, how they even had to question whether or not it was hate driven. I can't even begin. Um, and that's actually part of that's like a heavier part of the anger for me. I know that's kind of a weird statement to make, knowing that lives were taken. Um, and I hate that I'm about to say this too. I'm so fucking used to lives being taken that it's the other stuff that are the things that hit in a little bit heavier. And for me, they had everything they needed to know, and they're still like, we have to see if this is a hate-driven crime. That is part of it that was really infuriating for me. And then in relation to the events in Orange County, I do believe that attack assailant was Asian also, right? He's Taiwanese, yeah. So that one is a little bit tougher because I guess I don't know enough about what motivated them to do what they did.
It was politically motivated.
Politically
Yeah.
For
motivated.
China-Taiwan issue.
Yeah.
Got it.
The
Okay.
shooter was mainland Chinese. The church was
Versus-
was
right,
the
okay.
church. Yeah.
Okay, so I was confused about it, but I also needed to shut it off at that point because it was back to back, and every time it's back to back, it's extra difficult. And this is with me not being from that same group of Asians. It just matters that we exist and that these things keep happening. So yeah, for me that's what it is. I'm angry about outsiders determining if it is hate. Because we fucking know.
I mean, to drop some historical facts.
Yes.
Just want to say,
Next time.
I want to add one more thing. I have seen very little coverage about this, but there
Same.
was a hair salon in Texas.
Yeah,
I believe it was in Dallas, where multiple Korean women were shot.
Three.
Three,
Right?
yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just was like, again, like with this, like I can't take any more of this. But also historically, the justice system has not been there for any marginalized group. And I mean, back in the day, like indigenous folks, black folks, Asian folks were not allowed to testify against white people
Right.
in court. So many times throughout history, white folks have been able to get away with things because of these legal technicalities and different things like that. Like even in the Chinese massacre, there was no convictions because it was turned over on these legal technicalities, and it's like they couldn't prove that someone had died. It was like nuts,
You'd have to believe dead yellow bodies.
and it's
was
like
how they were looking at it.
yeah. And then so this is just to me, I'm seeing that it's rooted in that, like, oh, they're taking these lives that are these dead colored bodies,
Yeah.
which is so traumatic. I'm sorry to even say. And it's like, that's just like what I'm seeing. It's rooted in that. It's all white supremacy at the end of the day, regardless of who the shooter is, I think. But I do believe
Actually,
that.
there's something to that too, I think.
Yeah.
Because even in other places in which there was like an Asian mass shooting, so here in the United States, predominantly our mass shooters are white males. Occasionally, they are also Asian males, as like the next number of that, and it's almost always with some slant towards
Yeah.
white supremacy is driving them.
Yeah, and I also do want to add, like, the media is curving things, like, kind of like how they would share stories of Asian folks getting attacked by black people when statistically white folks were doing most of the attacks, and it led this narrative that it was the black community that was attacking the Asian community, and they were like the main perpetrators, and again, inflicting more trauma and not telling the whole truth accurately. Which again is just white supremacy. So yeah.
Classic white supremacy. No, I'm okay. All right, sure.
I just said classic white supremacy tools.
By rewriting, revision, silencing histories, forcing assimilation, forcing a master narrative, and like a Marxist that's thinking about like Toni Morrison's singular narrative, but Toni Morrison's cooler than Marx.
I guess just briefly on my end, I think for me, when I'm also comparing and contrasting other instances of mass shooting, like how the Atlanta shooting last year was not considered a hate crime, how the shootings of the Sikh folks in Indianapolis was not considered a hate crime. And it took, I'm assuming, probably a massive outcry before this was labeled domestic terrorism. And I think that goes to show how the laws as they are built to defend the colonial state. It's built to defend white racism. So I think it took so long because of very narrow legal definitions, and that's why I think we need to really update these laws to be sensitive to these things.
Yeah, going.
I just want to expand on one thing. Thank you for passing the mic.
Of course.
On what Rohan was saying, I totally forgot it. 'Cause I got distracted by the passing the mic gesture, and it was great. But wait, could you? My brain is all over the place. But
To updating the laws.
oh, updating the laws to protect white supremacy. Yeah, it's literally conserving it, like conservatives. There's there's that parallel. It's just like it's right there.
Yeah.
Like,
And I want to add it's gaslighting. Okay, continue.
Yeah.
next question. Sorry.
No, I just want to add that. Actually, no, I don't want to add. Never mind.
There's been a lot of adding today.
Right.
Yes, Anna.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, with the Atlanta spa murders, it took around a week for it to be labeled domestic terrorism as well. So this is an unfortunate trend where government is too slow to name what it is. And it's honestly really disheartening to see that happen a year later. And I was wondering,
You need white victims for it to be easily identified as domestic terrorism. That's why Oklahoma City bombing gets labeled as domestic terrorism really quickly. That's why the case in Las Vegas with the man who shot up the concert, there were white victims. Really easy to identify domestic terrorism in that respect.
It's also like a refusal.
it's also like a refusal to acknowledge hate crimes and the reality of that. Because in refusing that, you don't have to hold this. Oh my god. No, I was like,
I work out. It's fine.
You work out? Oh my god, I was so used to it. I was like, oh, I was taking it for granted, and then I realized I was like, oh my god. My Leo rising was like, I love it though. Sorry, it was totally wrong tone. Sorry about that.
It's fine.
Were you adding?
I was. I got totally distracted. I'm sorry.
Shall we
about that.
go to the next question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
yeah. So with tomorrow in mind being the Blasian March about Black and Asian solidarity, what or how would you like to see the Black community and the greater AAPI community show up for each other in the wake of these tragedies that are both rooted in white supremacy?
Let's take that one.
Well, I am always a big fan of history and storytelling and rooting it in the fact that this violence does not come out of a void. This violence is rooted in
A trend.
Right, it's not a trend. It is deeply rooted in the oppression of the indigenous, genocide of the indigenous, ongoing genocide of the indigenous, particularly women, girls, two-spirit, other queer Native folks. I think for me, this is also a time for us to stop thinking about racial hierarchy, especially in our organizing. I think a lot of times when we're doing a solidarity event, it's like you're saying, everyone be silent, everyone fall behind as one person, everyone recreate a new idea of privilege. That's something I see very often in organizing spaces where it's like, again, that one protest where, they said that our protest chants to uplift Asian folks was appropriation. It came down to the point of, my question was, what should Asians say in this space then? And literally it was
Use a thesaurus for power.
Yeah, like that.
So I think for me it's like, I think for communities to really hold each other and heal each other, we need to let go of any idea of one of us will become the next dominant race in the future.
Right.
Yes. Well, there is that Audre Lorde quote.
Yes.
The master's tools can never be used to dismantle the master's house. And I think the biggest thing is the master, I guess in this case of white supremacy and white people, it's been keeping us separated and fighting with ourselves, amongst ourselves, for the scraps that they decide to leave us.
Right.
And not using the master's tools of who will take the next spot, but it's really like, how do we unify and say, like, no, this is not how this is, and fight back against not only stereotypes and microaggressions and the continued gaslighting and trauma that we constantly experience and have experienced and stuff, but it's also like just recognizing like what we're doing and awareness with our actions and stuff. I mean, I kind of hesitate to like say like you should show up exactly like this at a rally, only because like everyone shows up differently, right? However, I think coming in with a space and a mindset of solidarity and we are in this together is really, really important.
Yeah, the idea of actively being together. So many of us come from ancestral groups of people that were community minded. The village raised the children. The village fed each other. The village built homes. Things like that. This is, so many of our cultures are like this, and in a very odd way, so many white cultures weren't like this. They were almost immediately individualistic in some form, whereas almost every brown group of people have some form of community-based existence. And so our DNA should be doing that. Like, our DNA should be telling us to find community. I know I'm guided towards community a lot more, luckily, given my DNA. I'm guided towards community more than I'm guided towards individualism. So I think that is what it is. If we show up and we have different skill sets, we use the skill sets we use and we trade. That's what we've been doing. Soph has this skill set, she took that part. Lee has their skill set, they took their part. Lee mentions a skill that's missing, I took that. Like, all these things that we've been talking about have been born out of us just leaving the forum open for someone to fill whatever's missing. And if we show up with that kind of mentality, and also, and I'm saying this to a very specific person on this panel, everything we do is important towards getting the greater thing done. So it doesn't matter what we individually perceive as enough work. It's that we show up. It's that we do the work. And it's that when we feel the gap, we communicate we have a gap so that someone else feels it. And we don't feel guilty when we don't feel like we're doing enough, because I think we all are. And I think that needs to be more present in any kind of organization work, but specifically in solidarity movements, because there are ways in which different groups of people understand something in a way that is more effective, so that if a different group doesn't experience it that way, they can focus on what their group experiences more, and that would be more valuable to a movement. And at the end of the day, like I said, our enemy is the same. It's white supremacy across the board, and it's so insidious that it doesn't have to work hard to divide us. It's given us just enough for us to divide ourselves. And so that's why we have to keep fighting against dividing ourselves or taking slices out of the oppression pie, because master's tools. They gave that to us. We need to do everything opposite of what they've given us to organize well.
That's beautiful, and I feel like that's such like a good like summation of a lot of the energy that has been going on in the organizing, in the discussions today, but also kind of like how a lot of people are feeling right now. And in response to the question of like, how do we want people to show up to the rally? Is that right?
Just in general, like,
Just in general?
yeah, specifically the Black and Asian community. Like, what is an act of solidarity that you hope for?
Right. So for me, the act of show up, but also for me, being the person or having put so much of my energy into putting this together to support Rohan's vision and Rohan's movement.
Now your vision,
Well, it's not just my no.
This is our vision. This is collective. This
It's
is
collective.
It's a quilt.
It's a quilt.
A collective vision. A collective quilted vision is what makes a movement. No, not just a singular one.
That's why a quilt is such a good.
So, absolutely, and there's so much history in quilts too. A lot of this is a lot of the organizing. The heart of the organizing has been focused on creating empowerment, creating a space where people feel uplifted, and not doing it with a hierarchical kind of like rating of people or like looking at people in a certain way, but instead moving in a fluid kind of mimetic almost fashion of reaching community. Oh, someone knows someone. I trust this person. I trust who they're bringing in. And then amorphously, community comes together. Even though people will have conflicting politics, which is always a huge issue within organizing, I think that's kind of like something that was touched upon. If you can find the things that you connect with other people, where you can feel like you uplift each other, where you feel like you can get angry and heal with each other and understand why you got angry and figure out how you can be angry together in a way that works, in a way where you can mobilize, in a way that you could actually make a team to make a larger difference or a larger presence or a larger stage for community members to come through. So when it comes to acts of solidarity and how people can experience that tomorrow, show up if you're angry, be fucking pissed, or show up and be like really compassionate. These emotions are so closely tied together, and the idea is to transform that together, right? We share our feelings, we march together, maybe we walk together, and then we go to a space where we heal and eat together as a community.
Man, food as a way to resolve.
Yeah.
That segue.
There's so much healing that,
I
and
like
speaking
how
of food, we're like hella hungry right now. But like food as a way to come together as a collective, I think is also a really important thing. And I think any kind of solidarity action should feel like comfort food.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it should feel like a potluck.
Yeah.
What is food, really?
We're getting existential.
And I think on that note, we can go ahead and wrap up. Yeah. So thank you again.
Do you have any more questions?
I have like 6, but
Do you want to pick one more?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
one more.
yeah.
We're very long-winded. We have done 3-hour lives. I'm just gonna say that.
I've done
Okay.
5 hours with the person on the show before. Yeah.
Well,
I need
okay.
to learn to shut up. No. Yes.
Okay, well, both these questions are personal, if that's okay.
Yeah.
But you can choose which one you want to answer. How about that? We'll do both questions, and each panelist can choose which one they want to answer.
Sounds good.
But you will answer at least one of them.
Yes.
Please.
So, about last weekend, and maybe this is specifically for the panelists who do reach this intersection of Black and Asian identity. Have you spoken to your parents about it?
One of my parents is dead, and one of my parents is dead to me, so no.
I tend not to talk to my family about these things just because we have very different political ideologies. My mother and I love her to pieces, but we definitely disagree on many things. So I have not.
I am not Blasian. However, I will say I do bring this stuff up in a group chat with all caps of like, can you guys believe that this happened? In which my father is present in that group chat of my 2 parents and my siblings and my sister-in-law. And so we like touch on it, but like for sure my dad knows like that I'm in these streets. He's always like, please be careful. Like that's his biggest thing. He's like, just be careful. But
He's living outside of his body, that's why.
exactly. And he's an Asian immigrant. But at the same time, he actually is able to identify racism that happens to him now, which is not something he was able to do before. So I think that that's a win-win. But like, yes, I do talk about it with my parents. One of my parents.
May I ask how he felt?
So because my dad was not raised here, he doesn't understand like racism here. Like he even though he has experienced it, he doesn't get it because he's from a monoracial country. So like the psychology of it, like he can understand when he's being treated different now, but the root of it, like he can understand like this history, but he's just not. It's hard for him to grasp like racism. Like he's even like I don't understand why, like in the sense of like why people are like that.
Yeah.
And it is because my dad is not like that, you know what I mean? And so and plus he grew up with two parents who were deaf and mute. So he already has like a different perspective on life anyway, and he's very much like doesn't like discrimination, and he was like the first feminist in my life. Though he doesn't use those terms, like everything he's done has been like that. So yeah, like he's just a very inclusive person, and I think he wouldn't use those words, but he's just like I don't understand why people are like that.
And then, you want to, yeah, please.
I'll just share a friendly reminder. My father was enlisted in the military for 20 years. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, got it.
That answers that question.
On a final question to just sort of bring our energy back up, what is a recent act of solidarity that has inspired you the most?
It is sitting at this table.
Oh, I love that I'm an it.
Well, actually, I meant like us all sitting at this table.
Oh! Made it all about Rohan.
It was not necessary.
And
but it was
this
the
is
action-
why I am.
The
I have,
action of us
I have
sitting
4
together.
Leo
I was gonna say those Leo
Oh my
placements
gosh,
coming through.
all
We're
in the
looking
first
placement.
house.
But that's also why you can hold the spotlight though. It's a talent.
Oh. I'm gonna maintain this whole moment, and whatever tomorrow brings.
Whatever tomorrow brings.
Whatever brings.
It wasn't a recent moment, but also I do want to say yesterday was Yuri Kochiyama and Malcolm X's birthday, and we also did a panel on that a year ago on that day talking about Black and Asian solidarity. And I just say like I mean they're two of my biggest inspirations and stuff, but it's really just it was like seeing the different roles you can take on because Yuri Kochiyama is very similar I think to how Maine is in my opinion. Yuri was an elevator.
I like got a little teary thinking that I might be.
Yeah, no, I've
aligned
always
with
thought
her.
that. Yeah, no, definitely. Yuri was an elevator and a connector. Like she had all the connections and she knew everybody. And like, though she was crucial in like the formation of the Ram Black Panther Party in New York and like lots of different things, she like never would take credit. She was just like, no, I just told these two people to meet. Basically, she had that kind of vibe and was very humble and like even in the internment camps during World War II, like she was in there like organizing like, hey, let's all write letters to our soldiers, like the all Japanese soldiers that were forced to do the suicide missions. And yeah, so she was always like doing that kind of work and very involved with the community. And I just think shout out to her. And like, I'm always inspired by that. And I think that's exactly what our movement tomorrow is. And I guess movement is rooted in for sure. For sure.
I'm so proud.
Take the flowers. So time is a construct, no? So since last fall and working towards now and redirecting a lot of my skills that I've used in the private sector for the community in a way where I don't have capital interest has been really opening, and it's really opened me up spiritually, I think, in terms of like really feeling solidarity with everybody who I've come across, everyone at this table, all the organizers, all the supporting work, department work that are coming through. I know.
They're looking for someone.
Maybe they're looking for us. No. No.
Tomorrow.
I know. I'm actually looking terrified about that. I hope LAPD is not watching this because they called me at 8:50 a.m. this morning. Yeah, it's the whole thing. But yeah, all the trans leaders who have been like coming through and really showing support for this and seeing the possibility of like revealing interconnected struggles while centering issues that create precarity for trans lives. You know, it's that is like the act of or like the moment of solidarity that I've been really feeling, and I'm excited to continue. You know, these like relationships, the feeling of like growth and connecting and helping other people grow, right? But it's also like when it's not like you help other people grow, it's more of like finding moments when you can grow with people, is what I mean.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, you find people who are at similar points of your journey, but you know, our journeys are like a river that's like broken 20 times, right? Or like the nervous system.
So poetic.
It was super broad.
Leah's so eloquent. I'm so jealous. I'm over here like, nah, that ain't it, fam. And like,
Thank you
I'm
all
so
for
surprised.
answering my questions and for extending your panel for like the last 30 minutes. I really appreciate it because I know you're all hungry and thirsty and like ready to go. And then you also like touched on a question that I had that I didn't get to ask. So great.
So, awesome. Well, thank you again, everybody who came out. Thank you again to East West players.
Thank you, East West
and,
thank you.
Don't forget to be your mental self. We out. As I walk over to the thing to turn it off live.
Bye, live
Bye.
It's been on this whole time.
Wow.